So this week we are not having a sacred gathering as I'll be out of town. But since we talked last week a little bit about just this idea of these kind of devotions, of paying attention, using creative life to help us pay better attention to God, I thought this week I would do a quick recording of the devotions themselves. So if people do not have a physical copy, or if this is helpful to anyone in any way, shape, or form, you're welcome to listen to a section of this, kind of pause, and then, do the devotion itself. So I'm just going to simply read through these 6, 7 devotions over the basics in case they're helpful to anyone. So our first devotion is on the theme of line and rhythm. Take the most basic building block of an art form. In visual art, draw a line or a single point. In writing, pick a simple or short word. In music, a single note. In dance, a single posture. In cooking, your base ingredient. Consider your starting point for a moment. Think of its potential and the possibilities before you. A point could become a line, spiraling and playful, or it might become bounded, intentionally moving from point to point in the beginnings of a sketch. A single note could be repeated and breaking beginnings of a rhythm. It could change in ascending or descending pitch to begin a scale or a melody. A single movement can return to rest and stillness or begin a series of explosive jumps. Simply experiment without a plan. Seek out some of the possibilities of this building block. Make a mess. Find some things that don't really seem to work. Play. Find some interesting possibilities. Imagine what the ballets and banquets these simple building blocks might evolve into. Imagine how the possibilities before you share an analog in God's creation. Look at what God has been able to build from simple and small things spun into their full possibilities. A cosmos spun from vibrating energy, atoms at their most basic. Or a world-changing social movement from the undesirables of society, like the church. If you feel small, broken, or incapable of the tasks before you, remember the potential and the playfulness you were able to find in a simple artistic form. Imagine what God sees in looking at you. Now play with your chosen medium as God plays, as the creator. Shape. Theologian Lauren Winner makes an interesting observation. A thing's shape tells you something about its goodnesses that it contains. A narrow, rectangular book is good for being held and carried. It's good for being laid open, and good for sitting closed. It is good for remembering wisdom and secrets, and it's good for sharing them when asked. That's what it's good for. That is what it's shaped to do. The shape also tells you something about the ills that will befall a thing. The spine of the rectangle will be broken, and the white margins of the pages foxed. We can predict those things happen to books. In some cases, we can develop strategies for repair when, despite our vigilance, things go wrong anyway. Not all damage, but some damage, belongs to the form of the thing damaged and is characteristic of it. Characteristic goods and damages can be discerned in all forms and mediums. Pick a favorite artistic medium, as you may have done in the line rhythm exercise. Simply experiment without a plan. Seek out some of the possibilities of this medium. Make a mess. Finding some things that don't really seem to work. Play. Find some interesting possibilities. And as you doodle, sketch, improvise, etc., this time think about the characteristic goods and potential damages or weakness of the medium itself. What might it be good at expressing? What are some of the difficulties of using this medium? If you've picked a medium you're not as comfortable with, these frustrations might even be more obvious to you than to someone who's more skilled in this particular artistic practice. What does this tell us about the potential weaknesses of specializations and expertise that so fascinate our culture? How might this connect with Christ's championing of the least? What does this teach us about being designed by God? How might others need our characteristic goodnesses? How might others identify and cover up our characteristic weaknesses? How might the strengths and limits of an artistic medium teach us better to see these forms in the world? Form. Writer Paul Kingsnorth argues that in the fallen world, we often falsely believe breaking boundaries leads to happiness, that boundaries are barriers rather than opportunities. We strain against limits. Was this part of the original sin? refusing our bounded human physicality and need for reliance on God, others, and the world around us? Do we struggle or embrace our aging, our lack of expert knowledge, our unwillingness to try things we might fail at? Let creativity teach us to embrace our limits a little more. If you're an artist, pick a medium that you are not skilled at. Painters try writing, woodworkers try singing, writers should draw, etc. If you do not consider yourself skilled at creative work, even better. Pick a simple object or an idea as the subject of your creation. Work as best you can in this unskilled medium, but don't ultimately worry about the results. You won't have to show anyone the final product. What are the dissonances and frustrations of this medium? In what ways can you not create what is in your head? What's working? Are there any elements that are good or better than you expected? Are there any surprising joys in this new medium? What do you think you would have to do to master this medium? What do you think this creative project can teach us about God's value of process versus our culture's offer of instant gratification and limitlessness? Value dynamics. Select a favorite work of art, a painting, print, musical composition, or a song, poem, story, novel, movie, setting in nature, favorite bird, etc. Watch it, listen to it, read it, linger over it. What is it that draws you? Don't focus on its technical aspects. You're not analyzing this piece. You are noticing its overall impact. What is it that this piece does in you? Are you drawn to it for the world it creates, the characters it introduces to you? Does it express some deep feelings or idea of yours you couldn't express on your own? Are you saddened when you reach the end, or have to leave your time with the piece? Why do we want to linger in beautiful natural settings? What is it you are losing or mourning when this interaction is over? Augustine of Hippo argued that all our desires and longings are actually our hearts searching for God and His kingdom. Examine your connection to the piece you selected. How might this same connection teach you something about how you can connect with God or other people? How is what you love about this piece a connection to the artist who created it? How might this connection also be reflected in the heart of God? Or an alternative, choose a piece or a meeting that is considered important or well made, but that you don't personally connect with. Ask these same questions of it. What might this piece teach you about the heart of its creator? What might this piece teach you about God's heart? How might this help us connect with the parts of others that don't come as naturally to us? Space, structure. Pick a favorite selection of scripture, maybe a psalm or one of Jesus' parables, or a favorite poem. Try to illustrate it as one would a graphic novel. What are the key points that need to be made? Should some of the pictures be larger and others smaller? What words need to be included? When might a simple picture be better? Notice how translating this piece of text into visual art changes how you read it. What have you noticed that you might not have before? Do you understand the message or the images differently when you approach it this way? Or an alternative, write your own poem or a song in response to this text. Ask the same questions of your poem or song, or create your own parable to make the same point you feel the text is making. Color or timbre. There's an old tradition of trying to systematize and standardize colors for comparison. Long before Pantone colors were identified for paints and printing purposes, there were standardization guides for nearly every artistic and natural science field. Standardization works pretty well for paints, inks, and other manufactured colors, but is always a lot trickier for colors in the natural world. Find some paint chips, a Pantone collection, an old Werner's guide for colors. Take it into the field. Try to find an exact match with a leaf, a flower, or in the sky. Notice other objects around, maybe even other examples of that same leaf or bird wing or cloud bank. What are the similarities? What are the variants? Look at the same object at different times of day or in different light. Ponder the difficulty of categorizing even this one simple color or object. Imagine the mind that designed all color, all this variety, the creativity that should make a human colorist envious. Enjoy. If you're a visual artist, use watercolor, ink, dye, your favorite medium. Try to imitate the color exactly. If you're a musician, try to come up with a perfect short melody for how the color feels. If you're a writer, find a short metaphor or a phrase that describes this color. Texture. It can be easy to focus so much on the product of creative work that we can miss the tools and materials with which we are working. We are also rarely aware of the environment in which we create. Just as our context affects our formation, our experience of community, and how we serve, the texture and tools of our setting will form our creativity. Take a moment to notice the space around you currently, the space in which you usually worship, or the space in which you create if you're an artist. How much empty space is around you? What colors and textures is the space around you primarily made from? Are there lots of organic colors and textures, wood, greenery, or natural metal colors? Or is the space more artificial in its paint colors, or sterile and utilitarian? Notice the furniture, both around you and those you may need for your work. Are you sitting at a table, hunched over a press, sitting over a piano, standing before an easel? Is this space necessary for your work? Could you, for instance, change your stance or take your work outside? How does this space enhance your current work? How does it distract or hinder? I've heard it said that spirituality always has a local address. So does creativity. Think of how God is forming you in the places you find yourself. Is the larger context around you more urban or more rural, or something between? Just as we are often unaware of the space around us and the tools we use, we need to be able to notice how our cities, neighborhoods, and associations might be forming us, and how God might be seeking our attention through the textures of the local. What do you see in your current surroundings that remind you to focus on God's presence? Where is God at work in your neighborhood, in your place of work, in your city? How does God inhabit these things? And how do you? So those are the meditations that I wrote. Please just pick one, spend some time with it, and may it bring you a better sense of attention, of generosity, of God's current presence.